Deadlock is a MOBA and shooter game, which currently isn't even in open beta, but I've spent an almost embarrassing amount of hours on it. I've climbed from the middle of the ranks to the highest available, and I thought that it could be a good idea to start putting down what I believe is the theory behind most games in Deadlock. Now let me be clear, I do not think or believe to be one of the best players at the game. In fact, I feel very far away from it. In fact, while making this video and while writing down the script, I noticed multiple times that my vision on some parts of the game was not as bright as it should be. I did my research, I asked around, and I tried to put together as much good information as possible. One last disclaimer is that all of the following ideas are based on ranked and pubs, so what I say may not directly apply to scrims and organized team play. This is probably the hardest question to answer, since it's based on everything revolving Deadlock. It has multiple answers, and at the same time multiple wrong ones at that. Let me start with the simple one. If my goal is to destroy something in the enemy base, why not just completely focus on pushing objectives until I get to the endpoint? There are multiple easy answers to this question. I will not go into them right now, we'll see them during the video, but I'll want you to keep this in mind as a possible way to think about Deadlock. Before going forward, I want to take a quick moment to spoil something. Notice how I'm not gonna be mentioning anything about skills, slots, items, and so on. The answer to why I'm not doing this is that the game is in a constant state of change, and so is the meta of how you play it. I'm trying to give you a prompt to think and understand why you make specific choices, rather than a to-do list that a new patch may just make obsolete. Let's keep building on what we just said. To win, we'll focus on pushing their base and killing their Patreon. Our job is optimizing this concept to make sure that we can get there and win before the enemy does. This is where we start talking about time, souls, objective, the map, and fights. The video will start getting more complex, so I'm going to tell you right now how I'm going to approach these topics. You do not need to understand right now. It's just an introduction so you can keep track of what I'm saying. We'll look at time to understand the cost of our actions on the map. Then we'll look at souls to understand the mechanic that defines how high is our cost and our reward. To look at souls, we'll need to understand how each hero should interact with the map to keep their economy going and to become active. An active hero gets what he wants. This will lead us to find multiple points in the game where we can gain a disproportionate advantage over the enemy, whether that is time wasted for them, souls lost, or space. We'll use the concept of space to figure out why you want to push or fight something on the map at a specific time. And winning will be a consequence of the right use of space to snowball into a game-winning fight or map situation. You play in a map which changes over time, against and with heroes that, as well, change during the gameplay. What I'm trying to accomplish is making you look at the Deadlock match like you would to a business. Your character is the target of your investments, and it should be obvious that if you don't put enough into it at the right time, you won't be able to compete with others when it would be optimal for you to do. Every character will work differently, and it's up to you to understand when he becomes more efficient at doing something on the map, like ganking or fighting, rather than something else, like pushing a lane. The game still remains a battle of efficiency, and most of the time, all it takes to win is understanding this concept as early as the map starts giving you resources. Before going into the concept of souls, I'd like to mention the fact that team composition can change how a game should be played. Characters like Paradox or Haze can make some actions more efficient for your team, and abusing their strengths consistently can change the tide of a match, since you have a disproportionate advantage over the enemy team. There is a difficult to understand separation between farming and helping your team. In the rest of the video, my goal is to give you the tools to understand when it's good to invest and when it's good to spend your time. Being efficient at anything you want to do is a very good starting goal. Souls will be our next tool to understand cost and reward of our actions. Souls are the Deadlock equivalent of gold in other MOBAs. With souls, you get hero levels which make your character stronger, and you can buy items which make you better at winning fights, or make your map efficiency higher. Itemization has been covered in a video from Poshipop. I suggest you take a look at it because I will not go deep into the topic since it's a completely different part of the game. Still, I would please ask you to watch the video if you have no clue what you're buying and why you're buying items. As I just said, souls are the key to be more efficient than the enemy at doing actions. This includes rotating, taking objectives, and overall winning. More efficient doesn't imply that you win automatically by having more souls. Let me repeat. Souls don't win you the game. Here are all the ways you can get souls. I will not include the American amount since you can find those directly on the wiki and they change too often. Trooper waves, kills, objectives, the urn, jungle camps, boxes, and an honorable mention to Trophy Collector, which is technically a passive which gives you souls. Going into each source is not the purpose of the video. We'll set a soul per minute benchmark to more easily analyze our efficiency when taking specific choices. This baseline will be the Trooper Jungle Boxes rotation, where one pushes wave, clears as much map as possible, and then comes back to the next wave. The reason why it's so hard to tell someone to not farm like this for the entire duration of the game is that it can consistently keep you at a viable soul count throughout the game. The problem is that we are trying to win, and we talked about being efficient. Having the most soul at the every point of the game doesn't necessarily mean you're winning as much as you could be. A very quick example of what I mean is what happens when you die early in a lane. The enemy team becomes more effective than you at killing, and there comes a breaking point where it's free for them to include killing in their farming rotation. Even if kills reward little souls, every time you have to come back from your spawn, you're not farming. So effectively, 30 seconds of your gameplay can be counted as a net Trooper Jungle Boxes cycle to the enemy team, plus the small kill value they get. Enemies can stunt your growth to a point where you'll be forced to buy not for investing but for surviving. And this is a huge step for them towards winning. It will start to make sense now that the efficiency I'm suggesting to have from the start of the game is required, because if you are, for example, able to get ultimates before the enemy laners and you can go for quick kills, you'll have a spike of efficiency at killing them, and before they can catch up, you can use the momentum to outbuy them and invest more aggressively. In general, you can find spikes of value that make any action more effective than another throughout your entire gameplay every match, whether that is a tier 4 item, tier 3 ability, or anything else. So how do we read and use souls? If used correctly, souls are a way to negate or amplify a character's goals. A haze may decide that killing his lane mirror is a worthwhile task, making a tech item for him a good investment. On the opposite side, seeing a haze with a lot more souls than you will probably mean that they're trying to optimize and they're becoming more effective at killing you, and hence you're gonna have to play more carefully. Deadlock allows you to see the items and what other characters are upgrading, so I'd suggest you do that if you have a consistent mirror to make sure that you can outbuy them and survive the encounter to keep your efficiency up. The reason why souls don't win games is that some character may need a specific spike to become effective in fights, and your team comp may be able to become active while such characters are still in their investment process. Some characters are better than others at working without souls, and understanding which mechanic of your team can outperform any specific goal on the map is your key to winning. Dynamo Ultimate can make a team push below a tower worth even at a soul deficit due to ability of making killing 3 or more people efficient for your team. Let's catch up. We want to win, and if we are efficient at doing things, we can get bigger advantages faster than the enemy team, which can make us even better at going towards winning and make them worse at stopping us. If we can't get bigger advantages, we can still rely on our composition's most efficient traits at all points in the game to win fights which we should be losing. Optimizing your gameplay for souls is undeniably a good strategy, but you always have to consider that your enemies will do the exact same. So how do we make people challenge us when they would like to farm? How do we make them unable to farm? And how do we decide when it's worth to give up our time to rotate somewhere else? When does a win outshine efficiency? Let's talk about space. From now, I will take the previous topics of the video as granted, so this chapter will be less technical and more practical. The map is divided between 2 teams. If you look bottom right, you'll have half of it for yourself and half of it for the enemy. The split changes continuously during the game, and it's our job to understand how to control such space, and what advantage it gives us. A very easy way to understand who owns which part of the map is figuring out who can get there faster from a neutral position. If we consider our objectives as players in the team, it's even easier to understand how a single person can control space. For example, can you get up freely on the Guardian platform of the enemy team early in the game? No, you do not have control of the spot, and unless you get what you want from it quickly, whether that is a kill or some boxes, it will be very easy for the enemies, even if outfarm, to deny you and kill you. The same happens if there are no objectives on the map. If someone from the enemy team can get there fast, they control the space and you're timed to get out of it quickly enough or to start controlling it. You may start to understand why owning parts of the map where the enemy has to go makes up for a very easy way of winning fights and makes every action the enemy has to take much less efficient. A secret shop may be mandatory for someone late in their farming, and controlling that part of the map can effectively stunt them. I will now outline the ways you can control space and actions of the enemy team. are the key to map control. They take ziplines with them, they make objectives weak, and they are the main source of souls for most of the enemy team. When nobody's on a lane, it tends to bounce back and forward, but as soon as an external factor, such as a trooper getting hit or a player being on the lane, it goes and shoves under the closest objective. The respective team will usually react by sending the amount of people necessary to fix the lane. If you, as someone with a lot of souls, are pushing the lane, you can control the enemy team to overreact by just showing below an objective. We measure an overreaction from how much time is wasted by the team for an uneven result, 2 players for one with similar souls, or 2 players from an important fight coming to you rather than fighting. As I just mentioned, you do not need to destroy an objective to stimulate a reaction, because by pushing a wave deep and showing on the map, you can also get access to map resources, such as jungle and boxes on their side of the map. So not only will you outfarm the rest of the enemy team by working a wave, but in the right circumstances, you will earn control over their resources, so they will have to send someone. At any point of the game, you should look at the map and check which waves are empty. If you can catch those waves and shove them enough, you'll also create enough reaction from the enemies to save your own teammates from an outnumbered fight. Please do not forget our goal of being efficient. You cannot just decide to get out of a fight, take 2 ziplines to go on another part of the map, and push an objective. It takes too much time, it's probably better to just do the closest thing to you, and is not going to help in the fight because by the time you get there, your team will have lost. Following up on your idea, even if very slow and probably inefficient, is a good way to learn when a choice is a good choice. Because you're gonna see the reaction, you're gonna see how much time it takes for your team to die or win a fight, and you're also gonna be able to see how much people are needed to win a fight against their team. Of course, you will be called out for a bad choice, and with experience you will learn when making a good choice or making a bad choice. Before talking about objectives, we have to address the hardest part of deadlock macro: fights. I say hardest because discussing fights as a standalone topic is the same as trying to compress all of what I said into a single topic. A fight is any interaction between 2 or more players with the intent to kill. A situation where 2 players are poking each other with cooldowns is not a fight yet. Fights and kills are a moment in the game where you're gambling a specific amount of time on a result. If we understand what we're spending and what we get in return, every fight becomes a much easier choice. The cost of a fight is split between the time to get there, the time to fight, the map space lost by diverting players to the fight, and the possible death timers. Ironically, most of the fight cost does not stay in the actual fighting time more than it does in the time to become participant of such fights. Most heroes won't have the soul efficiency to take fights until a certain point, where they will outshine others by so much that fighting will become efficient even after a rotation. I will completely avoid in-fight micro and positioning as it's a completely different topic which I do not feel confident covering. Fights can happen in 3 different zones: in neutral space, in enemy space, or in your space. As we said before with space, whoever owns such space has an easier time accessing it, hence the owner of the space can run away more easily or gank more easily. It's up to the good player to understand when he can either kill fast enough to ignore the problems of space ownership, or whether an enemy is unknowingly, mistakenly in the wrong space for too long. The good thing about fights in the enemy space is that it's easier to stimulate players to overreact in helping, hence granting ownership of the rest of the map to the part of your team which isn't fighting. Once again, we see the importance of being efficient. A player with a lot of souls, doing the right things quickly, will overstimulate the enemies to make a choice they cannot afford to make. That choice can lose them the game. These are the questions I learned to automatically ask myself before fighting. You may have different ones, but my ones are: can I get there fast? Do I win? Do I win fast? Do I have something else of the same value I can do closer to me? Is the result of that fight better than what I can achieve alone right now where I am? As you may have guessed, our next topic are objectives. We have repeated the same concepts enough time to make this last seemingly complex topic seem much easier. Objectives are just 3 things: space holder on the map that don't make creeps push the lane through them and give advantage to the defending enemy fights. They are bell ringers for defenders when they are attacked that can overstimulate reactions from the enemies, and they grant a good amount of souls to the destroying end. So how do we understand when to push them? When they're efficient to destroy over just stealing jungle and boxes? When they're given up from the enemy team and they fall into our space? Or when we need to stimulate a reaction? Make sure that whatever choice you take still fits the efficiency question we discussed in the fight section. We now have a solid base for making choices in the game. I did not talk about the urn and mid boss directly because they are similar enough to objectives and you can view them as the same thing. They both ring a bell, both require to be efficient, otherwise you'll stall your team, and both can be given up unwillingly from the enemies. A very simple case is having middle lane completely shoved, starting a mid boss and being able to catch people who walk their way there in your space that can end up in bad position, split, while you still have all the advantages of owning the zone. Another important topic is the argument of this all applies only because you're winning. To that, I answer that there isn't a winning or losing situation. There is only a team more effective at doing something. Losing is just the act of misunderstanding what you can or can't do with your characters at your specific soul count, and doing this so repetitively. Most comps can win fights with big network gaps if space is played out correctly. And if you fall behind enough to be unable to win in any situation, you can try playing off the other team ego when they take space which shouldn't be theirs. Just remember that if someone is too rich, a bad rotation can become worth it for how quickly it takes them to win the fight. All of what I said can still be reduced mostly to theory. The reality is that even between the highest ranks, you'll find players who don't actively apply any concept and still outperform 90% of the lobbies they're in. I structured this video to follow what was my learning process for the game, and I'd suggest a similar path. Start by trying to be efficient, cycling waves with boxes and camp. You don't need to focus on anything else other than always trying to be doing something. Another very good exercise, in case you don't understand the concept of space or have a different view on it, is to try to pause at any point in the game, look at the map and draw in your mind where the enemies can get fast and where you can get catched. A very quick example I can give you is back to the walkers close to your base. There is a very flat portion of the map here, which, if used correctly from the enemy team, can be in their space while their walker is still in your space. Which means that they can catch you while outside of the base with basically no repercussion because they already own that zone. At last, another exercise which really helped me is just going for whatever you want to do at any point, making a decision and just following up on it, and checking on the map what the decision changed. How shoved is the wave that you left? Did someone die? Did your objective die? How much HP did your objective lose? These are different parts of the same equation. You must focus on doing only one per game, because you learn more quickly and with less frustration, and at some point you'll just do them all without thinking. At some point you'll find something you don't like about my way of describing macro, and you'll do it differently and you'll found your playstyle. Until then, I hope I helped in some way. Thank you for being a part of the deadlock community and keeping the game enjoyable, and have a good one. Thank you.